Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. We are going to give it about 2 more minutes. Looks like we have people still logging on, so we're just going to wait till we have everybody in. In the meantime, though, if you want to go ahead and let us know what chapter you're with while also testing out the question box where you can ask questions during the webinar, go ahead and pop your name and who you're representing today. And like I said, we'll get started in about 2 minutes here. Okay, it is 2 after, and it looks like most everybody is here with us. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I know for those of you who joined at 4, I'll let you know about the question box. If you guys want to test that out for yourself, looks like I've seen some people already put it in, but if you just want to put your name and what chapter you're representing and make sure that is good to go, so you can ask questions during the webinar. But we'll go ahead and get started with our presentation today on Omega Recruit training. Today, I'm going to be your presenter, and with me I have Heather McLeod. She's going to be answering you guys' questions in the question box. So if you have those during the webinar, you can submit them and Heather will gladly respond to those for you guys. So let's look at our agenda. On the agenda today, we're going to look at tips for successful recruitment, and then we're going to look at logins and account setup. So what that email is going to look like for your members so they can log in, and then what that will look like for you as an admin. And then we're going to go over main menus and features. So we'll go down the menus while setting up basically like a practice recruitment. And then we'll look at voting and reporting, so what your ballots are going to look like and how you submit that. And then we'll have Q&A at the end where any questions that were asked, we will go over those. Before we fully get started, Heather's going to give us a quick intro on OmegaFi, and then we'll get started.
Thanks, Sarah Beth. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. Like Sarah Beth said, my name is Heather McLeod, and I will be answering your questions today. So feel free to pop those in the question box if you have any throughout the training, and we'll allow some time at the end too to answer any questions live if we need to. Like Sarah Beth said, though, I wanted to kick us off with a little introduction to OmegaFi for those of you who may not be familiar with us. OmegaFi is the company that hosts and manages Omega Recruit, which you'll be getting your training on today. And we've actually been around for more than 30 years with providing technology solutions to help customers with managing finances, streamlining operations, recruiting new members, as you all are getting ready to do, and even communicating with members. We work with 57 different headquarters, and as well as local chapters, house corporations, IFC and Panhellenic councils, and alumni associations across more than 650 campuses. And we continue to remain the industry leader when it comes to technology in the fraternity and sorority community. And we're actually based out of Columbus, Georgia, and we securely process more than $1.1 million per day for our clients, and we've securely processed more than $4 billion since we started in 1992. We are deeply committed to serving and promoting and advancing the fraternity and sorority experience. And we aim to make raving fans, which is one of our company values, with every individual or group that we work with by reaching and innovating and acting with agility. And we challenge ourselves to dream big every day and to help you all achieve your dreams too. So to say that we're passionate about what we do is an understatement, and it's this passion that has encouraged our clients to trust us to do the heavy lifting so that you all can focus on your mission and having fun. So again, that's just a little tidbit on OmegaFi. I will turn it back over to Sarah Beth to continue the training.
Thank you, Heather. So we'll go ahead and jump right in today with our tips on how to just start out with a successful recruitment. The biggest things are being proactive and being prepared. With that, a few things that we suggest are logging in, practicing, and training. So with this, make sure all your members are logging in at least a week in advance of your recruitment season. You can log in earlier, but we do suggest at least a week. That just ensures that everybody is able to get in and you're not trying to do it the day of, just in case anything does go awry and a member is not able to get into the system. If you do it a week in advance, software support will be able to quickly handle it before recruitment comes around. With practicing, we have files in Omega Recruit that are just going to help you get familiar with the system. That's what we're going to look at today, how you can use those files and basically run through a practice recruitment, and you can have your members participate in that as well. And then we do suggest looking at our training material. We have several different things within Omega Recruit, as well as our Help Center, which we'll look at today, and we have our webinars also there to assist you with any questions you may have to help you get ready before the recruitment season starts. And then looking at the login process, if you are an admin, you'll probably receive an email that looks a little something like this if you've never set up your account before. So you'll get this email and you'll go in and set up the account and start adding your users. When you add your users, they're going to get an email that looks like this. So even if users have previously used Omega Recruit, because we did our master reset in May, that was for the whole system, a little different than the master reset that you can do for your chapter. All users have been taken out except for admins, so you'll need to re-add any users as well as any new users. So when you're doing that, they'll get this email. If they've already used Omega Recruit before, it will go ahead and take them to the login page where they can log in with the same information they previously used. If they're new to it, they'll hit the create account and it will take them to the page where they put in their information to go ahead and set their account up. And just make sure also with people who have already used Omega Recruit that you are still using the same email address that they previously used. So we're going to jump over to look at Omega Recruit, how we can add those users. So when you first log in, you're probably going to see this. It's going to ask you to update your recruitment dates first. It'll redirect you to this page right here. You're going to go over to Edit Chapter and go ahead and pick your recruitment dates. And then once you do that, you'll be able to move throughout the system. So when adding your users on the left-hand side, we'll look at the user tab. We're going to go to Add Users. You can add them individually here. All you need is first name, last name, email. You can also upload a file. So with multiple users, this is going to be easier. Have your Excel file. Again, you just need the first name, last name, and their email address. And you can upload that spreadsheet, and then you will be able to see them within your user list. Now, when you do that upload, that's when they're going to receive that email. If at any point you're not sure if a member has logged in, you can look and see if it says send registration email here, that means they have not set up their login yet, and you can resend that registration email. Today, what we're going to go over for Omega Recruit, it's easy as 1, 2, 3. We're going to go through those 3 steps of just adding your rounds, uploading your PNMs, and uploading your parties. These are going to be the key things that will get you set up for the recruitment process. So we'll go ahead and get started by going to our PNM list right here. This is going to take you directly to your setup page. This is typically when you log into Omega One. If you haven't started the process, you'll normally be directed to this setup page. And on the setup page here, we have practice files that you can download to do your practice recruitment. They are just, if you click on these links, it'll download them, and then each step is numbered, and you'll be able to click on that to take you to whatever page for that step. Now, as we can see, step 3 is gone. That is adding your users. We already have users in this account, so that step is not here. As you do your steps, they will start to disappear. So we'll go ahead and start with step 1, setting up your recruitment rounds. With setting up your rounds, you can just click this Add Round button here. And when looking at this, we clicked the link for step 1, but this is also, if you go to the chapter tab over here on the left-hand side, this is where we're at right now, just under the edit rounds. So we're just going to do 3 rounds with the practice files that are provided. The first round is 12 parties and the second round is 9 parties. So party voting and open voting, the difference between those two, open voting is going to show all your P&Ms when you're voting. So if you have a large number of P&Ms, it can be harder to find them. If you're doing party voting, that's going to narrow down your list for your members to vote. So only the girls within each party will show when voting for those members. So when you're advancing your rounds and parties, you'll only see the P&Ms who are in that party. And then for your rounds, if you are looking to change the names of your rounds, we have this little pencil icon here. We'll have this one say open house. And then let's have this one say, let's have it say sisterhood. And then this last one, we're just going to change it to pref. As you can see, this little preference banner here, this is always going to follow your last round. So if you add another round, it's going to follow that. So just make sure if you're labeling these, if you add any more rounds, that you add that or you change those names accordingly. When you're setting up your rounds, you want to set them all up before you start your voting and advancing your rounds. This way, in case you have any like specific calculations for your voting, everything is good to go. So you just want to set those all up to begin with and save that. Now also when looking at that, each round does not have to mean each day. So there is a 20 round limit. So if you have open house, but let's say you're at a really large school and technically that open house round spans for multiple days, you don't have to make that multiple rounds. It can be one round and then you just add however many parties you have, and you can open and close those rounds at the end of each night. So no voting comes in overnight. And you'll do that on your advanced rounds and parties, which we'll look at later once we have uploaded our P&Ms and our parties. Okay, and going back to the P&M list, now that we have set up our rounds, we'll see that step 1 has disappeared, and we'll move on to step 2, uploading the P&Ms. So when looking at this page here, depending on if you're a school that uses ICS or if you use some other recruitment software, if you're using ICS, you can connect to ICS through our integration, and you'll just be able to click upload P&Ms and they'll automatically pull in to that. We'll look at where you can connect and disconnect, because if you're doing practice rounds, you don't want to be connected to ICS pulling in actual P&Ms. You'll want to use the practice files that we provided. So we'll look at later where you can connect and disconnect from that. But on this page, if you are an ICS school, you'll have the ability to upload your P&Ms directly from there. If not, if you're a school that uses something else like Campus Director, you will have to format and upload your P&Ms in a file. So when looking at the detailed instructions here, you can see it's pretty plain text. There's no special formatting or anything on that. You want to make sure you stick with that. If there's any type of like weird formatting, it can get in the way of the system being able to read the data, so it might not upload properly. When looking at this, you'll see here, these are the headers that you'll be able to have in your file. So you want to have your MIN, which is your member identification number, which you should be provided by your school, and then everything else that's listed here as well. Some of it is not necessarily needed, so if you don't use it, you don't have to use it. It'll let you know when you try and do the upload if it's necessary. But we have that here. Make sure you're sticking to exactly how these names are formatted. That way it can read it correctly. Same thing with one mistake we see is like class or year. You want to make sure it's saying like freshman, sophomore, even if you say like first year, second year. So it reads that data correctly, as well as a lot of times with this picture one, you can put URL or P&M picture, not just like P&M pic or URL pic, those type of things. Just make sure you're following this right here. And then you can see at the bottom here, if you have any data that is not listed in one of these headers that you're wanting to add, you have 6 custom columns you can use, and you'll just label them custom 1, 2, 3, and so on. And we'll look at where you can change the names of those once you have uploaded the file. We'll look at that later. And then once you have formatted everything and you're ready to upload, make sure you save that as an Excel 97 2003 workbook, and then you'll be ready to upload your file. Go ahead and get that. And once you have that file, you can upload it and you'll get this little green box if that was successful. So here, like I said, if there are any headers that you don't use, it will let you know that it's missing, but it'll say missing unrequired column. If you do have an error where it's not able to upload, it will also show down here as well, and it'll let you know where that's occurring so you can go into the file and fix it. Then when you're done, you can hit return to PNM list and it will take you back here where you can now see all the PNMs listed. So this setup page is always going to be up in this top left-hand corner of the PNM list, so you can always go back to that, and you can see step 2 has disappeared now as well. And then whenever you need to look at the PNM list, you can just hit close. So we're going to go ahead and skip to step 5 and upload our parties. So same thing here with the instructions. You can see it's a little more simple. You just have the MIN, which is your member identification number, and then the party in which they are going to be in. Make sure you're assigning them all a party, especially if it's the first night. If they're not returning, they don't need a party and it will mark them inactive. But if you do not assign them a party and they are coming back, then it will mark them inactive in the system. So you want to make sure if they are coming to X party that you have put that within the file. Same format type to save it as, and you'll upload it. This is also another page that if you are an ICS user, you'll just be able to import your parties. So we're going to make sure we have that for open house. We're going to choose the file, 21, and we will update that, and we'll go ahead and go back to this page now. As you can see, step 4 is not going to disappear here. These steps you repeat throughout the process. So once you have gotten to step 4 and 5, you'll see like none of those are going to disappear. So now that we have uploaded our parties, we're going to take a look at our PNM list a little closer before we look at the voting and advancing your rounds. So looking at the PNM list here, we have a few different things you can do. This is going to be, though, your primary hub of information as an admin. So this is where you can review all your PNMs, their information, their scoring. And the first thing we're going to look at here is the hamburger menu up in the corner. This is going to have a few different options for you. So you can refresh and recalculate. That can be used to make sure you have the most up-to-date information and scores. As you're going through the recruitment process, if you're actively having members vote, you can refresh and recalculate as those votes are coming in to the system so you can see those. And we also have this select columns option. So if we want to update that to see, so we have like our pictures party, let's also choose starred, and we'll do hometown and admin notes. And another thing you want to make sure is always selected down here. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, this is where you'll see your rounds. So like we want to make sure our overall is tagged. So if you're not seeing scoring, make sure it is selected on your columns. We're going to do that and hit done. We'll see now that we can see all of these columns that we have selected. For these columns such as admin notes, I know there was another one on here called interest. You can double click into that and add any type of admin notes you may need, like graduated early, if that's something you want to put in there. You can also double click into the picture URL thing. You'll see the URL here. If that needs to be replaced at any point, you'll just copy and paste it, the new URL into this right here for their picture. And also, if you want to move these around, you can slide that over and it will change that. Now, if you refresh the page at any point, it will reorder them back how they originally were, but it won't get rid of any of the columns you've selected. So once you select the columns, they're on there unless you change them otherwise. Another thing we can look at here is our starred column. So if there is a particular member that you guys really like as a chapter and you want to pair her with a really strong recruiter, you can double click that star, and we'll look at later how you can look at that on the user list as well. You can star your users and your PNMs, and then when you are using our matching tool, that is one way they can be matched together. So this is optional, but it's really great if you're wanting to use this to match your members. And then also the sorting feature here, you can sort out different things. So like if we want to do freshmen, this will show us all the freshmen. Just be cautious with that. If you put anything like was in freshman's honor college, if freshman is in like your admin notes or something on their interest, then it may pull them in even if they aren't a freshman. So if you want to do a more advanced search, you can look at this little info icon and look at that information to narrow it down. And then you can also sort these accordingly. So if we wanted to sort this by party, then we can see the PNMs in order of what party they're coming. So with the slideshow, if you don't want this to be limited, make sure there's nothing up here. Otherwise, in the slideshow, like if we look at this now, it's only going to show the freshmen because that's what's in the sort column. So with that, though, you can tab through this with your arrow keys and you'll see your PNMs accordingly. You'll see all this information. If you want to filter that out or add any more, you can look over here. You can take out whatever you don't want on there and narrow down, or you can add things on there accordingly, whatever you're wanting to look at. And then if you're wanting to print that, you can hit the P key on your keyboard. You'll get this blue page here, and then you can just right click and just make sure when you're doing that, you'll need to probably reformat this to fit on the page before you print it. But once you've reformatted, you're good to go and you think it looks good, you can print those off so you have a paper copy if you'd like that. When you're done, you can just hit the escape key and it'll take you right back to the PNM list. And the last thing we'll look at on this right here is your PNM list export. So if you're wanting to pull that information out, even if you don't have like all your columns selected here, this Excel file is going to show you all the information that can be held within the PNM list. So we can see all of the different tabs here. That's why it's really good, like when you're uploading your PNMs, if you have their GPAs and all that and you're wanting to put that in, put it in with your upload so you can look at this accordingly. Now, one thing to look at right here, these -1s, that's because there aren't currently any votes within the system. Once we start getting votes in the system, these will go away, but that's what you're looking at here. And this is just like a really good overview for you to export, and then you can, do whatever you need with the data within an Excel file. And now that we've looked at the PNM list, we're gonna continue going down this little PNM drop down. So we already looked at how to upload your PNMs, but if you need to add a PNM individually, you can click on Add PNM and put their information in here. All you need is the MIN and the first and last name, but any of the other information you want to put in is helpful to you guys, and then you can just hit submit. And then again, here's where you can upload your parties. So if we want to go ahead and upload our parties for sisterhood, we can do that here. And then you have your reporting that you'll start getting into. So you have your comments reporting here. This is going to basically be any comments that are submitted on the ballot. They'll be within this report that you can download. And then with this right here, this is recommendations. This is going to be basically like outside recommendations. So if you want to give this link out for PNMs to be able to have recommendations submitted to the chapter, you can. And then when those recommendations come in, you can export it in this report here. So that's optional for you guys, but it's a nice resource there. And then this page for your reports is going to be kind of your main page where you have like most all of your reporting. So you again have something similar to the PNM list. You have your PNM report here, but you can filter this a little more so you can include your comments within this and choose to select only your active PNMs. So if you don't want to see inactive PNMs, if you're in later rounds, you can filter those out through this and then download it via Excel. This one is your votes. So this is going to break it down like just showing your votes. And you can again do it for only active PNMs, and then you can include the vote values. And you can specify what round you want it from, or you can do all rounds. And then another thing here that this will have is you can sort it by users or PNM. So if you do it by users, it's going to show you votes by each user. So it'll show like Sarah Beth voted for XYZ PNMs and this is the vote. If you do it by PNM, it will show the PNM and then who all voted for them and what their vote was. Comments, similar thing here. You can just narrow this down by rounds if you'd like, and then you can choose how you want to sort that. This is another slideshow option that we have here. This is going to be in PowerPoint, so if you prefer PowerPoint, it will have a little less information than the in-browser slideshow, but you can download this and then you can also filter that out. Here you can look at the voter distribution. You can do that by round or not. This is essentially just going to show how your voters are voting. So if your scale is like 1 to 5 and you see a lot of 5s coming through and you need to let everybody know, hey, like, you know, we're getting a lot of 5s in, let's try and be more critical about how we're voting, however you need to do that, but this is just going to give you a good overview. Same if you're getting like a lot of 1s, it just will show you how many of each vote are coming in, so it's really nice to have. And then here we have our voter audit report. This is a really great report for pulling any information about votes that have been changed. So you can change votes if you need to. As an admin, you can go in and adjust a vote. Let's say a member put in a vote incorrectly, you can go and adjust that accordingly or delete it so they can revote. And here we'll just show that. So it'll show, you can separate it out by rounds or you can show all rounds, but it'll just show what the admin, who the admin was that made the adjustment, what the vote was before, and then what the vote was after, and whose vote that was. So that's really helpful to just keep the integrity of the voting process. We'll actually go back to the PNM list here and we can look at, if we click on the PNM, you can see vote details under here, comments, you can look at their status for each party. So like this member here, it looks like they were put in inactive status because they weren't listed in a party, so they didn't come back. You can look at their PNM details, and then you can have your recruitment stats here. So as votes are coming in, you can see their voting distribution here, like as an individual, which is nice. And then looking at users, this is going to be your user list. Similar to how you can click on the PNM, you can click on your users individually and look at what votes they have done, any comments they have put in. You can look at their profile. You can add votes as well. So this is where on the voting account that we have, we'll look at how you can add votes and change those. And then here you can see the voter distribution. So same thing as the PNM one, but you can look at this like on an individual level, their voter distribution. Also on this list, this is where you can star your members. So if you, like I said, have a particular strong recruiter and you want to star them to be able to be matched with new members, you can just double click that accordingly. Or if you need to take someone off that, you can unstar them. You can also make someone an admin or remove their admin status here. You can delete them or restrict them. If they maybe aren't going to vote, but they're still participating in the recruitment process, you can restrict a member. And then you can also assign groups. So like if you have bump groups, you can assign those on here, which can be helpful. And we already looked at add users, and then you also have your user report here. So it's going to just generate a report with this information. That's everything under users. So now we'll go to the hub. So this just shows graphs of key data points. With any of these graphs that you click on, you can click on the arrow here in the bottom left corner and it will flip that around and it will show you like the data points for that, and you can also download that into an Excel document. But these are just some more graphs that just help you review the data on a deeper level so you can make the most of the information that's available. Below the hub, we have moved matching to where matching is going to be here now. For that, if you are wanting to use the matching, this is not a primary function of a MegaRecruit, but it can help you sort through data to determine like which members should speak to different PNMs that are visiting during your rounds. So there's 4 different criteria that you can use to generate potential matches. You have your recommendations here. Those are submitted by your members on the ballot or on their profile. And then you have your starred members and PNMs, which we looked at how we can do that, which depending on how your chapter wants to use that, you can choose how you're wanting to star your members and PNMs. and then you can do it by interest and hometowns. If you use that feature, your members are going to need to fill out their match profile. So when your users log in, they can fill out their match profile to put in their hometown and interest, and that way the data can pull in for this. Otherwise, you won't have matches necessarily from this specifically. For all of these items, you can select whether or not you want to use them or not, and then adjust the importance of those with the scale here. You can also choose if they are required or not. So if you do choose that they're required, so let's say you choose that recommendations are required, then even if they have similar interest or the same hometown, if they don't have a recommendation also, then they're not going to match. So just keep that in mind when using the required button there. Then also we can look at here the max number of matches per member and per P&M. You can raise this number or not. Just be mindful that the bigger the number, the more matches you're going to have to sort through. So depending on if you're a bigger or smaller chapter, you may need a larger number. So just the higher the maximum, the more potential matches you'll have to sort through. It can be any number, I think 1 through 500 now. We look at the bottom here. If you want to generate your matches, you can choose the round you're wanting to generate it for, and then you can also do that individually by parties, or you can do it by all parties. Another thing before we generate these, if you ever need a report of all the matches that members have submitted, like recommendations, then you can deselect like all the other options for you and use only the recommendations category, and then that'll show you like just who has put in recommendations. But we'll go ahead and we're gonna leave them all selected. We're gonna generate our matches, and it's going to look like this here. So you'll have your member. It'll also let you know like if you've assigned them member groups, it'll show that, and then it'll show your P&M. It'll show why they were matched, and if you want to delete a match or add a match, you can. So with deleting a match, you can select that and then hit delete. If you want to add a new match, you can do that here. Then just select the member and what P&M you're wanting to match them, and you can give a reason, and then you can hit save. And so you can add those in as well. One other thing, when calculating your matches, like if you like are to resubmit this, it will ask you like if you change any of this, it will let you know like you're writing over the matches that you've already generated. So it'll just let you know if you want to continue. And then when you're redoing this for each round, that's going to generate based on like each round. So if they've already talked to someone and you've already used those matches, like this will be a whole new match on this one here. Next, we'll look at the vote tab. When you click on this, this is what will bring up the ballot. This is an organization admin profile on this right here, so you won't see it, but let's look here. On this, like this will pull up your ballot accordingly if you're a member or admin of your chapter, and then you can select what you're wanting to vote on, select the P&M, and then here we can see if you click on the light bulb, it gives you a little more information about the P&M if you need to like verify that this is the correct P&M you're voting on. And then you can add a comment. And then you can recommend a match here and submit that. We don't have voting open. So if you need to open your voting to submit votes, you'll go to the chapter tab here under that. So we can go ahead and open voting. We'll have it open for party 1, and we'll go ahead and change the status. So now when we look at this, we can refresh it and that ballot will be up. We can choose, this is only showing us member or P&Ms in party 1, so we can see that's like a much shorter list than all the P&Ms that are listed. We can click on the P&M we are looking to vote on, put that vote, again, put the comment if you want, select a match and hit submit. And then now when you go to your P&M list, we can see that the members' vote has pulled in here. Going back to this chapter tab here, there are several different options on the tabs going across. With looking at this is how we open the round. You can also, again, if it's spanning over multiple days, you can close a round. Just make sure you hit change status, and then that way no votes can come in overnight. If you're wanting to not have that, this is where we edit our rounds before, and here you can edit your chapter. So if you need to edit your recruitment start and end date, any of that information can be done here. This is where you can edit your custom columns. So when we did our P&M upload, we saw you can use custom columns 1 through 6. If you need to change the names of those, this is where you would do it, and then they'll pull correctly into the P&M list based on the name you give it here. When earlier I was talking about people who use ICS, if your chapter uses ICS, this is where you would connect to the ICS server so you can just import your members accordingly. And this is also where you would disconnect if you're wanting to do practice rounds as well. And then here we have our master reset page. This is going to be in between, like if you've done practice rounds and you want to reset before actual recruitment, or after recruitment is over and you've pulled all your information and you want to wipe that before spring comes around, this is where you would do that. You do want to be really careful with this page here. If you master reset during recruitment, during voting, like in that time frame, we cannot retrieve that information. So make sure you are only doing a master reset if you absolutely need to. So such as after you're done with practice recruitment and you want to reset to actually start your real recruitment process, what this is going to do, it's going to remove all your P&Ms, any votes or comments are going to be out of the system, and it's going to set the system basically back to before recruitment. So you'll have to go through the whole setup process again. So just keep that in mind when using your master reset here. And then after your chapter tab, we do have this configuration tab here. This is going to show how your ballots and rounds are set up, your round scores, anything like that. So if your national organization has a different configuration, it will say here, and then it'll also show over here your Greek letters of your organization instead of the word configuration. But this is just going to show you how that scoring is calculated when you're looking at the P&M list. Then here we have our training page. This goes through steps like what we did today for setting up your account and going through that recruitment process and the different tools that are in it. And then if you are needing any direction or you have any questions, you can always click the Get Help to get taken to our help center here. This has several articles of information. So if you have a specific question, you can type it in here and find the answer for that. If you are still needing direction, you can't find the answer, you can always submit a request here, which is the same as basically emailing support. You just choose what issue you're having, and then it will prompt you to put in this information. When putting in this information, just make sure you're being as detailed as possible so that when they get back to you, they're able to help you more quickly with more information. So that is pretty much all the tabs and everything we've gone through today. So we'll go ahead and look at this just to recap. So preparation is going to be your best bet for success during recruitment. So again, for those tips that we talked about earlier, make sure you're logging in early, make sure you're going through some practice rounds. It'll be really helpful to do that before you actually do your final recruitment, and then make sure you're reviewing the in-app training and that sort of thing to answer any questions you may have. And I'm going to go ahead and put this up on the screen here while we look at the questions, but this is going to be our email support. And again, we have the Help Me section within Omega Recruit that you can look at as well. We'll go ahead and look at the questions here. Heather, have any questions come in during the webinar?
Yes, we got a couple. First, just to confirm, the recording of today's webinar will be emailed out to everyone who registered for the webinar. So even if someone registered and they were unable to attend, we will still email them the recording. So if you do have any of your other chapter officers that were unable to attend, just ask them to watch their inboxes, and that recording will go out by the end of the week, most likely. We also got a couple of questions about logging in, and so I just want to make sure that you all know what that looks like. So if you go to omegafy.com And I don't know if you're able to show that where that login box is on our website, Sarah Beth. Yeah, thank you. If you just go to omegafy.com, and then on our website, there's a login button right there on the top right. And so then you just enter your username and password, and that's what that screen looks like. If you are part of any of the organizations that are listed there at the bottom, then you'll use whatever your login is for your national organization. And then once you're logged in, Sarah Beth, do you mind showing them, just going back to Omega Recruit and showing them the grid?
Yeah.
So then once you're logged in, your landing page may look a little different. You may see all of these icons there, but you'll have what we call that grid that Sarah Beth just clicked on, and then you'll just select Omega Recruit from there to get into Omega Recruit. If you also have an Omega One account or a Vault account, then those logos or those icons for those products will be listed there as well. So then you just select that to get into Omega Recruit. And if you have any issues at all, feel free to email us at that email address that Sarah Beth had up, the recruitment_support at omegafy.com. So that's the login questions that we got, how to address those. As Sarah Beth said, we highly recommend that at least a week before recruitment, you make sure that you and all of your voting members can get logged in so that you don't have any last minute issues there as everybody's trying to vote. Well, anything before I move on to the next question, anything you would add to that, Sarah Beth?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. The next question that I wanted to just make sure everybody's aware of is regarding parties, and if those were to go over multiple days, should you enter multiple rounds? And the answer to that is no. If it's one party, even if it goes over multiple days, it's still one party. Anything else for that, Sarah Beth?
That's good. I would just mention that, I know I mentioned earlier, but part of that also you want to be careful because you have round limits, so there's only up to 20 rounds allowed. So if you're adding parties for every single day, that could quickly run up your limit, whereas you only really need one for that round with those parties in it.
Gotcha. Yes, thank you for clarifying that. We also just got a question that came in from Morgan, and I want to make sure we get that answered before we close out. The question is for uploading users. Do we include headers or just names and emails? And I see, Sarah Beth, you're showing that here. I don't know if you want to clarify that.
Yeah, so you just need the first and last name and the email for that. Any of the other information, they will they'll add that like on their side of things. So like if they want to add their interests and hometowns, they can add that, and their login is going to look a little different. So like they won't have all these menu options. They're only going to see a few different things, like voting, and then they have a button for recommendations and different things like that, and where they can do their match profile, but they won't have like all of these options here.
All right, thank you for that. All right, and we got just a couple minutes left. One last question is about how to update a PNM status to inactive. And we actually have a couple of options there. If you're using party voting, then once you upload your next round of parties, any PNMs without a party will be marked to an inactive status en masse without you having to manually update them. If you're using open voting, then there's not a way to do a mass update, but you can switch to party voting and only have one party and then update that list of PNMs who are returning under the other party upload. And then any other PNMs that don't have a party will be marked to an inactive status of regret. And there's also, Sarah Beth, do you want to show how to update an individual?
Yeah, so on the PNM list, I just clicked on an individual PNM, and then we can go to their status and party here. And then from this, we can see like they were active party 1, they're in regret party 2 because they weren't listed with a party. If that needs to be updated for round 2, you can put them as active, or you can change this, or let's say they were active and you need to move them to an active, you can use any of these to just change that status and then update that data. Now, like on the list, you can see like this was changed to withdrawn.
Gotcha. Thank you for showing that. And I think that is all of the questions. I'm double checking, making sure no one else submitted one last minute. I don't see any right now. Of course, this is not your only opportunity to ask questions. So please, as you all are practicing, getting ready for recruitment, all of those good things, feel free to send your questions our way. As Sarah Beth mentioned, we've got the in-app support where you can just click on that Help Me link and access our Help Center, also known as a knowledge base. Search for any questions that you have, and most of your answers should be there. If you can't find what you're looking for, feel free to send us an email at recruitment_support@omegaphi.com, and we will be glad to help. I thank you all for attending today. Let us know what we can do to help you out as you all get started. Have a great afternoon. Thanks for joining.